Glad that you're here with us on Morning Express on this 17th day of August 2015. It is now time for us to look at some of the big stories on the way it is. I'll go straight to introducing the panel that is here with me today. And to my extreme left, we have Hassan Omar, who's the Senator for Mombasa County and also the Secretary General for Wiper Party. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. How was your weekend?
It was a fairly relaxed weekend this time around. I attended quite a number of matrimonial vows. I had a couple of weddings for friends both in Mombasa and in Nairobi. So I went fairly well. Good weekend and reading about the sugar. Maybe the chairman here will tell us a little more so that we can then make a response to what he will say.
What he has to say. All right. We also have Onyango Olo, who's TNA Secretary General. Thank you for joining us. I hope you had a good weekend.
It was wonderful. Just came back from the Lakeshore town. It was quite a nice week. We received the president tumultuously. It was great.
Okay. Wonderful. We also have Ogla Karani, who is the treasurer for ODM. How was your weekend, Ogla?
My weekend was fantastic. I think I spent most of it praying for Kenya and the farmers, sugar farmers.
It's become that All right, last but not least, Ambrose Weda, who's a lawyer and also the chairman for the board of directors, South Nyanza Sugar Company Limited. Thank you for joining us. How was your weekend? Were you also praying for...
No, there's no need for prayer. I was in Transmara part of the week, then I was in Kisumu also to see the president, and then on Sunday I was preaching at our church at home. And then immediately I came into Nairobi. I had to go to a rival TV station to talk about sugar, but otherwise good. This parade of people are spreading about sugar, especially their party, is what I find very interesting. Yet none of these people have ever stepped into a sugar mill to know how it works.
All right, I guess you have started us off on the sugar. And as the chairman of the board of directors, South Nyanza Sugar Company,
yes.
What is it that we don't know that, you know, what is it about the noise that we don't know?
What people don't know, number one, our production is about 590,000 tons of sugar. We consume about 800,000 tons. With the dwindling fortunes of Mumias, maybe the deficit will be bigger. That means we have to import. Okay? Where we import it from is for government to decide. You get that? Then, so it means that shortfall is there. It exists.
So importation is...
Now, what hurts the local sugar industry is not the import to fill the shortfall. It is the sugar that is brought into the country without taxes being paid. Those that come through the Panya routes. Then there is the poisonous sugar that is imported from I don't know where, the second-class sugar. That is the only sugar you can find in the world which is cheap. Otherwise, other sugars from Uganda, from wherever, if it is quality sugar and you pay tax for it, it will squarely compete with the local sugar.
Okay, Hassan Omar, do you buy into that, the noise is unnecessary and it's not necessarily cheap sugar from Uganda?
You know, let me say this. I'm inclined to believe the Western Kenya MPs, because these are the same people who a few months ago, weeks ago, had gone for a bailout. I think they speak for the interests of their people, and for Western Kenya, sugar is life. Whether takes allowances from the Kenya Sugar Board, so under the aegis of Jubilee. So he has all these, myriad of explanations. But everything about Jubilee is surrounded in opaqueness. What we see is a scheme of corporate theft. We're not talking about sugar, we're talking about SGR. If you're not talking about SGR, things that are of such detriment to the Kenyan people. And all we are told is that, you see, we are doing this in the interest of the Kenyan people. Just what we've been asked is so simple. Make the deal public. As simple as that. Do we believe Amina? Do we believe Uhuru Kenyatta? Make the deal public. Much in the same way we've told them make the contract on the equipment, the health equipment, public. That's what the governors have been demanding for the last God knows how many months. We're asking you, because under this opaqueness, it's a very well choreographed scheme of theft. And I think these things are in the interest of our Kenyan people. If they are genuinely in the interest of our Kenyan people, The Constitution, Article 35, demands the freedom of information. This is not a matter of national security to a point where it will threaten the sugar stability of the country. And I think I agree with Weda. There is a quota which we always import. And equally, we also do know that Uganda does not have any surplus. So what you're doing then is to create a conduit. And I think that's what also, if you've heard the choreography of what people have been talking about, including the members from Western Kenya, is that it will give a conduit for now unscrupulous dealers to work with. That's why they want to see the deal on paper, so that people can critique it and the stakeholders wanted to input onto it. This high wisdom that is exercised by only one or two people, only Weda and the other chairman and probably now Onyango and a few others, is the high wisdom that I think the Constitution tried to mitigate through Article 10, which is the participation of the people. And the stakeholders are the people.
All right, Onyango Law, do you agree that there is need for it to be made public, and is there a reason why it's not being made public?
Before I come to that, it is very interesting. We truly live in interesting times. That CORD leadership would fight the sugar wars, try to protect farmers. First and foremost, we know who brought Mumias down.
Who is it?
The CORD leadership.
Who?
We know who are fighting in court over defamation now, over bringing down Mumias. We know whose company owes Mumias hundreds of millions in terms of molasses.
Do we know?
We know them.
Who is
they
that?
have admitted them.
Who is that?
A senior leadership of CORD.
Who?
Two senior leadership, Bwana Kidero and Bwana Halwale are in court. One saying the other one brought Mumias down, one saying it was not me. Then we know someone saying it is true I owe Mumias money, but it is not 400 million, it is 200 million. That is Kisumu Molasses Plant. We know which politician is associated with that. So you have said, Mike, it is interesting. CORD has just found new salvation to fight for the interest of the sugarcane farmers in Kenya. As the chairman of Sony Sugar has said, that we import sugar is not in question. The issues we have here, do we import it from Brazil or do we import it from Uganda, which imports more from us than Brazil? What CORD should be concerned with now, if they were a responsible opposition that seriously takes the interest of the farmers at heart, would be, what mitigating measures have you put in place to ensure that unscrupulous dealers do not bring their sugar through Uganda and it comes to Kenya, and make suggestions? But they are not going to do that because CORD is deep inside the sugar scandal from the time it was conceived to date. So what they want to achieve is make a lot of noise out of it, make kelela hapa na pale, while they know very well they have no intentions of saving the sugarcane farmer in this country. So in conclusion, what I would tell you, Mike, is that as Jubilee, we accept and we acknowledge that there is a shortfall of sugar that must be imported. And what is least known is that most of all these sugar millers, they have a quota to import annually. Okay? So what is important is that we should put in place measures to ensure that unscrupulous dealers, and more importantly, we don't allow CORD sugar barons to get into this thing. They are crying for that because we have sealed their business deals. That is the cry, the outcry you are hearing from CORD.
All right, Ogla.
I am happy that I'm here with the Sony Sugar chair. Sony Sugar, which Standard newspaper yesterday reported that they have more than 100,000 tons of sugar in their stores, which they cannot supply because they don't have market. Now, if we have that amount of sugar, 10,000 in the stores of Sony, and the chairman is here betraying the farmer, telling us that what the government did with Uganda was right, then I should tell you 100,000 tons. Okay. The Standard newspaper reported
100,000 tons.
Let her finish then.
And they also, I actually tried to check before I came here last night because I knew that this would be the topic to be discussed. I'm told even the production in Sony Sugar has been slowed down because the stores are full with sugar. I only started with her to tell us that it is not about our local sugar. And first of all, can we also accept that sugar is not only produced in Western Kenya, Mike? Sugar is a national issue. We have a sugar factory in Coast. We have one in Transmara. So we have sugar farmers all over Kenya, maybe except a smaller portion of Kenya. But the matter that is even more serious here is, how is it that the government, the president, and his executive, I don't know whether the chairman, you are in that group because you earn allowances from on behalf of sugar, went to negotiate for Kenya farmers in sugar and never took the leaders from Western Kenya, never took the governors from the areas that grow sugar, never took even the members, even the farmers, so that they could sit on the table and discuss on their behalf, or even the MPs for that matter. What was this secrecy about? Why don't we accept that the deal that was made in Uganda was a deal made between the Museveni family for their sugar and the Kenyatta family for their milk? Period. There was nothing for the Kenya farmer. There was nothing at all that was taking care of the Kenya farmer.
There that you're making, but before we come back to that, Ambrose, maybe you can respond to the amount of sugar that apparently is in stores, according to what she says, and yet we are importing.
Can you confirm to Kenyans 100,000 tons?
You said it.
Now let me tell you, the people of Kenya, this propaganda, the propaganda will not take anybody to State House. The capacity of Sony per year as at now is about 65,000 tons. We are hoping this year we will mill 75,000 the whole year. So how could we have done 100,000 tons in less than half the year? That's now the narrative, the propaganda you hear, because people don't know. We have armchair commentators on sugar issues based on facts picked from the streets. We do now about 65,000. We will mill, and that's our target this year, 75,000 tons. That is the capacity of Sony.
All right, let's separate.
Now, one, two, yes. Two, we don't have sugar which is stuck in the go-downs. We have a very small go-down, my brother, my sister. A very small go-down which cannot contain all that sugar.
We shall go there and see.
You get it?
Yeah.
And as at now, we do not even have enough sugar to reach Nairobi. We will actually want to be in Nairobi, we want to be in Kitengela, we want to be in Machakos. We don't have that sugar. Even now, if you go in there with your big lorry, you will not be given sugar. So this narrative that sugar is stuck, we don't have it, it is just because the Court Brigade thinks they have gotten the key to State House. State House is not that way. Get it this way. My brother, I don't get any allowance from Sugar Board, although I would be glad to receive that kind of money. We don't. What I can tell Kenyans...
You work for free, you sit for free.
What I can... Until you refund the illegal salaries,
you sit for free. No, just forget. Okay, I've taken. Does he sit for free?
Now, let me also tell Kenyans.
No, don't be...
We have 11 millers in this country. 6 of them are private. Okay? Kwale is also coming on board. All these millers are what would produce about 600,000 tons in a year. Kakira produces about 150,000 tons. It's one of the biggest millers in this region. Uganda has, as we talk now, a surplus of about 100,000 tons. Even if they were to offload what they have to Kenya, it would not be enough to satisfy our deficit. If sugar is not imported, Kenyans should always be prepared to pay 300 shillings per kilo. So that importation also helps to stabilize the price locally.
All right, so to separate fact and fiction,
yes.
Are you saying there is no sugar that is at the mills? There is no sugar whatsoever that...
There is no sugar which is stuck, which cannot be sold. Sometimes when we mill, we look at the price outside. Okay? How much is it going? We know we can wait for a day or two, because a shilling per kilo makes a huge difference depending on as you reckon it from our volumes. So strategically, our marketing team, they monitor the market. Say now the market is good, let us release. The market is bad, let's wait next week. That is what it's economic, strategic way of looking at it. It's not
Mike, all right. Mike, don't believe a man who claims here that he works at the Banyanza, whatever the company, for free. His ticket when he's attending a board meeting is paid for, his travel, his sleep, his allowances in there. So when he tries to create an impression that he volunteers, he's really in bad faith. You say you earn nothing. You said you earn nothing. You do earn from it. So that said and done. You sit in these boards. When you chair a board, a parastatal board,
illegal salaries
you chair and a parastatal board. Right. You will not divert the issue. Stop lying to the Kenyan public. Stop lying to the Kenyan public. This is the kind. Yes, absolutely. This type of dishonesty is very wrong, because you see, when a person denies a fact, you don't know how many other facts that he's concocting. He's coming here talking to you. I wish if he was the chairman, he would have come here with statistics that are demonstrably, firm. We've not seen these things being said out all the time. You see, what happens is they can make it appear that it's a race to State House. State House is one of our fundamental objectives. That is not in doubt. We're in power. We're in competition for power. That's the truth of the matter. But we have flagged off all these deals that are of extreme detriment to the Kenyan people. The standard gauge railway today is costing the taxpayers, after the surge of the dollar, 400 billion shillings. And I can tell you, it is becoming a burden to this public. Look, when you go and procure medical equipment, so around every deal within the Jubilee government, especially the billions, you see an opaqueness. What CORD is concerned about, and it's not CORD, Western Kenya and other sugar growing areas is concerned about the opaqueness, and it is concerned that these are deals that could not be of a private nature. And again, the contradictions between one person and another. The head of state is saying one thing, the CS cabinet secretary for foreign affairs is saying another thing. So I think that's the kind of thing. And if the deal is above board, what is so hard? Just make it public. It's now a week since the CORD leader, Raila Odinga, asked that the deal be made public. If there's a deal, there's a deal. Make it public. Let people scrutinize the deal. Let the sugar belt, the Western Kenya MPs and other sugar growing areas, have an input to that deal. And then let's have an open and candid discussion. Why do you always keep all these contracts concealed somewhere? That is the question. That's why these allegations then become quite credible on the basis of this opaqueness.
Okay. Onyangolo, you want to respond to that?
I want to respond to that. First, I agree with Hassan, senior senator and a senior lawyer, who says that when you don't have your facts right, then we don't know how much you're concealing. When he comes and says that Mr. Weda earns his allowances from the sugar board, first he has his facts wrong. Very wrong. He gets his allowances from Sony Sugar,
which
is different from the sugar board.
This is the same thing. You see, they want to just confuse. That is exactly my idea. What I'm saying. They want to just confuse things. The two of you are equally smart people. You are equally smart people. Don't take some few things and twist them to just make a point that is not valid.
Senator, allow him to.
Okay, I will finish. If only you had your facts correct and you would know that Sugar Board Authority is different from Sony Sugar, it would have saved our viewers those kind of hiding facts under the table, jumbling them up.
Talk about the sugar industry. I don't need to know about Sony Sugar and the rest.
What we are having, Bwana Hassan, what surprises me most, always, Mike, is that when you walk into this kind of interview with a senior member of the society like Senator Hassan, a member of parliament, and a lawyer to boot, who can quote to you off-head sections of the Constitution and quotes to you section Article 35, freedom of information, and accuses the Jubilee government of being opaque, failing to disclose information, and is a member of the opposition who is in the know. He is admitting before the millions of Kenyans that he is earning their salary without doing his work. He is failing Kenyans. What has he done to compel the government? Because the Constitution allows him to demand and receive that information. Secondly, when he comes here and tells us that the Minister for Foreign Affairs is saying this, the President is saying this, who shall we believe? what kind of convolution of facts. When you and your employee are at loggerheads or your statements contradict, definitely the boss's statements supersedes. So unless you are admitting to Kenyans that you do not even understand the basic protocol way of how the government works, I tell you, when those contradictions come, and they will come, you believe the president of the republic.
So there is a sugar deal then, for that matter. So there is I'm happy about that. Now there is a sugar deal.
Is the information open to the public? Has it been published? Regarding the deal?
Let us not talk about the deal. Kenya's, we have had allegations. People have said that we signed a sugar deal, and the president has said, if I were to trade, if I were to do business between Brazil and Uganda, I will choose Uganda for so many reasons.
So is that
because
tantamount to
Uganda imports a lot more from us than Brazil. But remember, we have closed those holes through which the opposition has been making money through the unscrupulous sugar importations. That is why all the noise. And they come without facts here. One says 100,000 tons have been held in the go down. Another one says you are being paid from sugar board. How did they end up in this interview with sugar issues?
You see, let me tell you. Before you, Elga, allow me. Those are not material. You see, who pays? I know he works with the sugar industry, and I know he gets an allowance from it. But that said and done, that's not a material fact in terms of the deal. He's trying, I'm telling you, these guys are just verbose. If this guy had his facts right, he would have won his seat in Luo Nyanza. He has no facts. Because you see, if you're factual, you're able to know that, you know, if I want to win, realistically, I must move in a certain way. And these young men, for that matter, they are part of this.
He's a much younger person than
the trade, I give you that in compliment. You know, they are part of this legitimizing force of a deal that they have no idea about. They do not know the beneficiaries. Poor guys, because of these chairpersonship positions they've been given, they run into media houses and start to defend something which is opaque. He does not know that there is this deal. Then he talks about the opposition failing in its responsibility. Opposition, through its leader, has asked for that deal to be made public. You can ask it through parliament. You can ask for it in public space. There are no particular
Let me come to you, Ogla, and maybe move this conversation forward. We do admit and agree that Kenya has to import, we do not have enough sugar to supply our needs. Why is it then a problem to import from Uganda? Why would that be such a big deal, yet we have signed into the EAC and the COMESA?
In fact, let's go back to the COMESA agreements. This is the third time, if I'm not wrong, that the East African countries are asking for extension for the COMESA trading agreements. And I am not sure of this, but I was told last night that the latest has been requested by Kenya and it has pushed this to 2017. I knew that there was an extension to 2015. Now, if this be true, of pushing it to 2017, so that the whole idea is so that every country in East Africa region can optimize their factories, the Sony sugar, the Mumia sugar, and the rest. But when we see what we are doing today in this country, is the government doing anything to modernize, to improve, and to optimize the production of sugar in Kenya? Not at all. Because they are all benefiting from this importation of sugar. Even if we don't have insufficient sugar in Kenya, we don't have sufficient sugar in rice. Rather, we don't have enough rice. We import. Kenya produces 40% of rice. Last year, Kenya bailed the rice industry with 1.2 billion. It was not dramatized because there was no political reason. So the 1 billion that was given to Mumias and that was made a big issue with a dummy check was all for political reason. So the issue is, even this importation from Uganda is not genuine. Let me tell you, Mike, it has been an accepted reality that there are people in this country, cartels, who import sugar. He has admitted, and it is, we are, you know, one of the things I like to do when I come to a media house like this is not to talk from the point of view of the opposition only, but to talk for the sake of the Kenyan people, because it's all about Kenya. As Kenyans, we know that there has been cartels of importing sugar in this country.
Can we, for the sake of Kenyans, we have mentioned and talked about sugar barons for a long time. Do we know who they are?
I personally will not tell you I know, but one thing I know is that it's been around this elite. They are. You know why they are? Because they are sugar barons, they have rice barons, they are people who import things illegally in this country.
But now,
and I will tell you why we have moved to Uganda. The fact of the matter is, we should just tell the government, tell your president, that there is no need of telling us we are importing sugar from Uganda.
President or our president?
We are getting sugar from Brazil and from all over the world, pass it through the ports of Mombasa, and take it to Uganda, repackage it, and call it Uganda sugar, and bring it here. In fact, we should just say, let the sugar be flooded from wherever, because we are already getting the sugar. We have been importing sugar illegally. These barons have been bringing sugar illegally through Kismayo. And I know that because now the international world, the global eye is so much around the Somali issue. These same, in fact, we should find these barons in the Jubilee government. That is why they want to hide the sugar from Kismayo. Now they may not be able to bring it because there's a lot of global eye around the war in Somalia. Now they want to take it to Uganda and repackage it in Uganda. And this story that we are being told every time, that Uganda, for heaven's sake, imports a lot from Kenya, is it by choice? It's not by choice. They are a landlocked country. They don't have a good relationship with Tanzania, so they have to import from us. In fact, it is the reason that should enable Kenya to question why we are importing from Uganda. They don't have enough factories, for heaven's sake, to make tissue paper. How can they be the ones making sugar for us?
Onyango, no.
Yes.
Have we put measures in place to ensure that this is not sugar that is repackaged? What is the government doing to ensure that we are taking care of the farmer, as opposed to what CORD leaders have, made very clear that apparently it is going to injure the sugar industry in Kenya?
Thank you so much, Mark. First and foremost, you realize that when Mumias went down on its knees, courtesy of CORD leadership, the government had to come out to bail it, to ensure that at least the farmer does not suffer. And the first and foremost, when the money was given, the president directed that that money be used to pay the farmers so that they are motivated to grow more sugarcane. I think the same was done when the president went to Sony Sugar, so that farmers in the South Nyanza sugar belt who are complaining that the payment had delayed for long, their payment was made so that they are motivated to continue growing sugarcane, and we have at least we move towards meeting our targets. Now that is one big aspect through which the government has been trying to help the sugarcane growers. You would also notice that in the last several years, the government has licensed quite a number of sugarcane factories as opposed to previously, so that we are able also, these private millers are able also to increase productivity towards achieving the amount that is that we should be, so that we reduce the quota that we import. But more importantly, there is an inter-ministerial committee that usually works between KRA, the Ministry of Agriculture, to ensure that rules and regulations are put in place so that what you call dumping of sugar does not take place in our country. That is what now should be reinforced. That is what, if the opposition was responsible enough and talked for Kenyans and not for the sake of achieving political power, they should be asking to see who sits in that committee and suggest rules of strengthening it, so that we ensure, because Uganda imports sugar through Kenya, we know how much they have imported to Kenya, to Uganda, and if they have imported to Uganda, then we know they have not manufactured sugar. They cannot import and then claim to bring back to us. That is what a responsible opposition should be doing. Instead of making noise, saying we are going to do rallies without checking the capacity of Uganda factories to produce the surplus that they want to import to us. So the government is doing a lot. The committee is in place, the KRA is in place, and sugar farmers, the government now and again gives them money when our brothers have run them out of town.
This thing continues to reiterate that Kidero, being a CORD leader, Kidero was at the point of being MD Mumias, not a code leader. So you know these guys continue to rub this fact. And if Khalwale is there for the interest of the people of Kakamega, and Khalwale speaks for the interest of the people of Kakamega and the broader Kenyan people, there's a contest between, you know, a wrong that if Jubilee was sincere about power, they could have easily today, if Jubilee knew that they could bring down a court leadership, they could easily take them to court. They have all the facts with them. So these are things, you see, when you're in government, and you come here and say they are barons, what you do to barons and people who steal public property, you know, the petty thieves who grab land and everywhere, you just take them to court. It's as simple as that. So you come here and lament as if you are, as you put it, like in quotes, like the opposition, saying the opposition is powerless. And you here are lamenting about barons that you have the means and tools to go for. So you know this kind of dishonesty, unfortunately. And I can tell you, we're asking him about government. He's a very peripheral actor in the government. He might not necessarily speak for it. He might have eavesdropped on conversations about government. But the truth is, you know, they defend a position as if we're dealing with an ideal government. They defend the position as if we're dealing with an ideal government. But behind every opaqueness, and I'm continuing to say this, the brother and sister of corruption is secrecy. Whenever there is secrecy, you know, that's why they are now putting the KDF bill. They do not want any oversight in terms of audit. So on one side, they lament that the opposition is responsible, the opposition is not playing its role, it's undermining national interests. I've never seen a government under such a barrage of attack on a legitimate you know, arm of government itself. The opposition is government, and it is recognized within the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya.
As the leader in the opposition, Hassan Omar, what information don't you have regarding this particular deal that you'd want to have? Because you've talked about opaqueness, and you also mentioned and it sounds contradictory that you said it's in the public domain. So what don't you have?
Well, what is in public domain?
Yeah, the information of the deal.
No, it's not in public domain. We're asking for that information. And I said what is in public domain is the fact that we have demanded that information. So there are methodologies you can demand. But people's pressure, or creating what is called a public demand, when you learn the instruments of governance, is one of the most effective means of demanding action or information. Then you can do it also through a parliamentary question. The Senate has been on recess, but I can tell you for a fact, the leadership within Senate of particularly the Western Kenya legislators, the Khalwale, Wetangula and the Kaniri, is an effective tactic. So I think by now the Senate will have discussed this even in matters of, or even asking for an adjournment. The third way you can do is to go to court to compel that this deal is made public. Okay. So I think there are all these effective ways which one can pursue. Any can be pursued.
All right, let me come to you, Ambrose Weda, and the question here is regarding the privatization of the milling industry and the fact that we would want investors to come in. With a deal like this now signed with Uganda, isn't that potentially putting the investor at risk and wondering whether he really wants to invest in an industry?
Now, first of all, I do not know the texture of the deal. But I repeat,
he doesn't know.
If you are bringing sugar to satisfy the shortfall, that is within our profitability. It has to be brought. By the way, if it is not brought, and then we sell sugar to our distributors and they hoard it, the cost of sugar would be so high. And as public millers, we not only, it is not, first of all, purely profit motivation. We have four core mandates. One is to put sugar on the table of Kenyans at affordable rate, to offer employment. That means we don't just, we cannot lay off people because we want to make profit. 3 is to undertake development in those regions. We have to do roads, we have to do many things. And number 4, return on capital, taxes, and then return on capital. Once you have done all that, then there could be profit, there could be no profit. If you compare to a private miller, like now we are paying 3,200 per ton, the private millers are paying 3,000 or 2,000. As public millers, you are directed to give a minimum amount. You are directed to a minimum you can give to farmers. So all these things, there is a social national responsibility of these public millers towards the country. It is not just profit-oriented. That is one. Two, the importation has to be done. Where it is done from is upon government. Our worry, what we keep on saying, let the importation be to satisfy only the shortfall, and let it be within the regulation. If it is within the regulations, we are competitive. But if somebody brings sugar, he does not pay taxes, okay, then that is where our problem comes in. And that sugar has been our long-running problem, sugar coming from all the Panya routes. Now, if Uganda was to import sugar, as I know it, it will only be through Mombasa. And Kenya would be able, Kenya Post Authority would be able to tell this is sugar they stand for Uganda. Why are you importing when you have a surplus? And then the statistics are there, it would go there. But again, if they were to pay taxes, sugar is a bulky item. Transporting it from Mombasa to Uganda and back, that cost will make it less competitive to the local sugar, unless you bring it back through Panya routes. So if we were to follow the law, I'm telling you, if people are to import sugar following the law and obeying the law, we can compete and we can tell them, bring on any sugar. We will still be cheaper. Remember that our ex-factory price and what you pay in the market, there's almost a difference of 40 shillings. How that is reached is where the barons come in. Otherwise, our sugar is equally very competitive, added to the social responsibilities that we undertake. We have some of the best schools, best medical schools.
Let me come
We're
to
doing
you,
great.
Yes.
And one of the things that the leaders from Western region have come out to say is that the importation of cheap sugar is cheap sugar from Uganda is going to injure the local production of sugar.
Yes.
And what have these leaders done to ensure that our sugar is competitive in the past? Because now they've come out with a lot of noise and said that this is what's happening, but what have they done in the past to ensure that this sugar miller and this sugar farmer is actually taken care of? Or is it just noise because of this particular deal that is supposedly signed?
No, it is not noise because of this particular deal. In fact, when you look at the value chain of the production of sugar and all the other agricultural produce, some of which is tea, maize and all the rest, you will realize that there is a deliberate scheme by the government to frustrate the farmers, because like he says, the roads are not there. The factories can actually do some roads, some extension of roads around its vicinity, but it cannot do roads that can go all the way to the farms. So even the transportation of this sugar, the raw sugar from the farms to the factory in itself, costs the farmer so much, and that affects the price of sugar ultimately. So the value chain network in itself is so compromised, because what can these MPs, leaders you are referring to in Western do if the government, from the national government, does not want to do roads, does not want to make sugar farming easy? We are told that every country, by the way, every country in the world subsidizes agriculture, most nations. But Kenya, nobody subsidizes agriculture. We are only told that, what the government does, and I cannot even say only this government, even the previous government, what they do is to suppress. The problem in Kenya is that there is a lot of determination to suppress any nation that does not, any region that does not support the government. So when the government does not make roads, when the government does not subsidize the prices of inputs for sugar, for tea, and for the rest, how then will the farmer and the factory be able to produce cheap sugar? These leaders are making valid complaints. The government need to support the farmer so that the farmer can be able to produce sugar that can be cheap in the market. In fact, as he talks about, we need to import only that can meet the surplus, I should ask him, before you import, sugar is rotting in the farms. Why don't you get all the sugar in all the farms in Kenya, put it in the factory and process it, and then tell us now that we cannot still meet the local demand. Let us make, do you know, we are talking about children who are going to miss school fees. Most of these farmers depend on sugar. The tea in Kenya today as we speak, I am a tea farmer, and tea in Rift Valley is going for 8 shillings. Tea in central Kenya is going for 34 shillings, 28 shillings and 34 shillings. The lead garas in Mombasa, they are supposed to be 12 for tea. 10 of them are people from central Kenya, tasting the tea and saying the tea from Kangaita, the tea from here is the best tea. Now, the tea from Kericho, the tea from Kapsara, the tea from Kisii is poor quality. So that tea earns less money. Yeah? Now, that is the same thing that is happening with sugar. We want to import sugar from wherever. I still say and I emphasize, there is no sugar coming from Uganda. This sugar is being imported. And I want to ask you, Jubilee people, can you jail for us? I have continued to ask here. Take these barons to court. You are the government. You know them. If you can investigate Al-Shabaab and arrest all these young people, why don't you investigate the sugar barons and take them to court? Or tell Kenyans, tell us, these are the barons, and tell us to shoot them. Now, let me answer this one thing. This case of Kidero that we have continued to want to depend on, the case of Kidero is in court. There is no court member, no court official, no court party that has defended, that has refused for Kidero to be arraigned in court. If he is truly guilty, let justice take its course. Okay. We have not protected him. None of our principals has protected him. So the idea is there is a deliberate effort in this country to destroy agriculture and to destroy every income generating activities from areas that are not pro-establishment, so that our people will be beggars and dependents, and so that when you take your money for campaigns, 5 shillings will make people vote for you. But in Jesus' name we refuse that this time.
Onyango Law, what's
that goes for maize.
Have we got to
in maize, Onyango, we are having, I am a maize farmer. The maize farmers in Kenya are suffering with maize, rotting in stores. In fact, we are giving them to animals.
Okay, let me hear from Onyango.
Because we are importing maize from where we don't.
Those are very strong accusations you're making, and I would like to hear from Onyango Law what your comments are on that. Have we reduced agriculture to a point where it's a weapon where we're fighting for?
Yes. To make people dependent and beggars.
The government is a government for all Kenyans. And this government has said and reiterated repeatedly that we stand for economic empowerment of the people of Kenya. When we do infrastructural development, it is to ensure that Kenyans are empowered. When we come with SGR, when we come with roads, when we come with cheap electricity, we don't say that we sell electricity to Nyanza and to Central at different rates. We don't say the SGR will only terminate at such and such a place. So what I find to be very contradictory is that the other day, CORD leadership rises up and says that Mumias must rise because Mumias has gone down. And we know Mumias was the leading producer of sugar. And even with Mumias producing at its peak, we still had to import sugar into this country. With Mumias now almost at 30% production, why is CORD again saying we should not import sugar? I still maintain, if they were a responsible opposition which is not preoccupied with the acquisition of raw power, but which would be concerned with the betterment of the people of Kenya, they should be concerned with putting mechanisms to ensure that sugar is not dumped into Kenya duty-free. They should be concerned, and remember, we are the gateway to Uganda. So they will not import sugar unless it passes through us, just as Mr. Weda has said. The opposition should be on the lookout to ensure that no sugar passes to Uganda. Simple, period. If it passes there, it means they have no surplus to sell to us.
Now we become police.
But as we are talking, when someone walks in here and tells me some people who are supposed to be professionals in their area in terms of testing tea or sugar, I didn't even know tea is tested. And they say, and I want to believe that if it is tested like alcohol is tested, then they are unmarked. And when they are unmarked, you simply have to say TA is the best or TB or TC. You cannot say this one has come from... and remember, the Rift Valley region that it talks about is solidly behind the government and voted for the government. That is one of the areas that we consider if we were to reward people simply by way of where they come from, which we are not doing, then that is the place we would even taste dirty first and declare first class. So let us stop propaganda to cause discord and disunity amongst the people of Kenya. This government, please, operates for the benefit of all men and women and mankind. So please, even as we address national television, let us not cause disunity amongst our people.
Let me just before you move on, you know, there's a
very short response to that.
you know, we represent aspirations. If now talking about strongholds and weak holds, we represent aspirations of a court constituency. And one of the two people, these young men, for that matter, they call them in a very complimentary way. These are people who failed in meeting those aspirations head to head. That's why they are the sporadic, you know, voices of Jubilee that get rewarded a few things here and there. Until and unless that day, you will be in tandem with aspirations, and I can see some of the tweets coming in, with the aspirations of the people they represent. The anxieties about a collapsing sugar industry, the anxiety about the economics, about representation, about the broader, fairness and justice within a government, about, inclusivity in government, about constitutionalism, about rule of law. Until that day when you meet those aspirations, you will be sporadic, feelers within the Jubilee machinery. You need to meet the aspirations of your people, even if it means you're in the opposition, because the opposition is a legitimate voice that aspires or represents the aspirations. And in this Kenyan sense, almost 50% of the Kenyan people. So I think they're totally out of tandem when they think that they are the ones talking for the people of Kenya. In fact, half of the people of Kenya did not necessarily support this government.
All right, let's move on to something else, Hassan Omar, and I'll start with you because I saw some of your comments and I want you to say, to hear what you have to say on the back page of The Nation today. And this is to do with IEBC's proposal of having, as a minimum, a degree for even MCAs, for governors, for MPs, and all that. What are your comments on that, and is that likely to change our quality of leadership?
First and foremost, let me reiterate my greatest emphasis on education. In Islam, our first divine revelation is to get an education. But then this education is qualified, the one that inspires, the one that opens up your mind, the one that gives you ilham, means it gives you light, education that illuminates. That's the education we are taught to get, not these things of going for extra classes just to get a good job, but an education that can make you an inspiration, that inspires you, that leads you from professionalism to innovation. That's the type of education that gives you honesty, that gives you social caveats, that gives you decorum. And that's the kind of education. So a degree in its own sense is just a mechanical fix. Most of us have degrees. Right now, most of the members of parliament, as Olga told me here, just before we started the program, have degrees. So a degree on its own is a very narrow fix. You know, there are people who are so corrupt yet they have no degrees. There are people who are very corrupt and yet they have degrees. So what we need is to fix the broader issue of the political ethic of this country, is to fix the broader issue of political debate. It's the kind of leaders and the political culture that we have set in this country that needs a thorough fixing. It's not a question of thinking. You look at the governors. All the governors are expected to have degrees, not necessarily an education. Having an education and a degree are two different things. That's what I've seen in terms of dichotomy. So that type. Apart from one or two governors, which governor can you say has had some extraordinary vision, accountability, exposes the constitutional values, has ensured that they institutionalize their counties, that the counties, there is a clear separation of powers between the county assembly and the executive. So I agree with education as a tool to illuminate our inner conscience and thought, but it is not as a standalone itself a fix to the Kenyan problem. I agree that the quality we have, and due respect to the MCAs, they are extremely good MCAs in Nairobi, in Mombasa, everywhere, but there is a way in which you can say, in some, that education was important for those MCAs to up their quality of debate.
Ambrose, whether your take on it, is that going to change our style and quality of leadership when we have more educated leaders?
If you are talking about quality degrees, then it would have some positive impact. But now we are having pedestrian degrees,
rooftops,
bought from all corners, being sold by universities that are looking for money. So if we are just talking about general degrees, then nothing. But if you are talking about education that leads to an award of a degree that gives you the power to read, assuming you had read, it would make some impact. But that alone is not enough. I'm told Jacob Zuma left in class 2. We have seen leaders who are there.
And not necessarily with degrees.
Yeah, okay. So I think we are trying to firefight.
Okay.
We are faced into a problem that we are firefighting. My solution would be, let the electorate look at people, look at the parameters. It should not be through bribery, through political influence, where you elect people because they're in a court and they're whatever. Elect leaders, and we'll just have quality leaders. Whether they have a degree or no degree, a quality leader is a quality leader with or without a university degree.
Okay, Ogla, do you think having more education helps us in terms of dealing with our value system? Because one of the issues I think we have as with our leaders is just our values, which is why corruption is rife.
I value education, and education helps expose people and open our mindsets. That is why we went to school. But education, whether acquired by an average person or an intelligent person, only provides or contributes 20% of effective performance. What we lack in Kenya today is values, as you are saying, and education does not really give values, and that is why Senator here says it is not about the degree, or even Lawyer Weda has just said it's not about the paper. It is about the value. It's about the quality of the person. It is about the virtues that the person has that the person believes in their leadership. What we need to do in Kenya is to emphasize on the need to acquire emotional intelligence. We have emphasized so much on IQ. IQ in itself and certificates and education, as I said, only contributes 20% or even less. 80% come from life skills, soft skills, these values that we are looking for. And my need as a Kenyan today, I can tell you, if we can fight tribalism, tribal hegemony, if we can fight corruption, then the rest will be irrelevant. The rest will only be, let me not call them irrelevant, let me not call education irrelevant, but let me say it will only be a bonus. As we were coming, I was telling Onyango Lo here, I appreciate them and myself and Kina Hassan here, because we come from different tribes and we are members of parties that are deemed to belong to other communities. If we can move this nation to that level, although of course as we know, our brothers here are not really in power, they are just on the peripheries, but it's okay. we have started.
Must they be in power?
No, they don't make any serious decisions, but they are doing their best. And they are doing their best because they have moved, and all of us, because they have moved beyond the tribal hegemony, and they have decided to try to bring some Kenyanness. Let me tell you people, if Kenyans, we can choose to fight this demon called tribalism, where one community feels superior than others, where one community saturates the constitution. All of you are lawyers. The constitution in Kenya today says not more than 30% of people from one community should be employed in an institution. This KRA you are telling us is going to be protecting sugar from Mombasa to Uganda. Give us the list of all the employees in KRA, and I will tell you, one community has more than 70% in KRA. Give us the list of all the employees in office of the president. Give us the list of all the employees of office of the deputy president or of Kenyatta University. Give us the list of all the employees
Is the issue the list of the employees of whether they qualify and how they got to those positions?
Mike, let me
because at the end of the day, we cannot say we're going to put people from different communities just to fill the post, yet they're not qualified.
Thank you, Mike. You have helped me answer. You have helped me get to another point. In Kenya today, even in Garissa, which was bombed the other day, people have gone to school. So we cannot, for any heaven's sake, tangle this carrot of competence. Every Kenyan, even a Turkana, even a child from Garissa is educated. And so we must be bold in fighting ethnicity. In fact, Kenya has come to where it is today in matters of education because, given credit, President Moi tried affirmative action, and that is why he went to school.
All right, let me
why
hear from Onyango.
Now, let me just finalize with one word. Onyango, okay, I will let you talk. Okay, so, but I wanted to just give me 1 minute to say this degree has not helped the members of parliament from Rift Valley from defending the farmer. They are educated, they are in parliament, and they are comfortable. They cannot speak because they are in power, and they are betraying the farmers. They themselves went to school because of maize, because of tea, because of a dairy, but they have betrayed.
All right, Ogle,
because they want to belong to government. So it is not about education.
Let me hear from Onyangolo.
Mike,
let me hear from Onyangolo.
It is quite traumatizing to be in the opposition. You see this tirade. They probably still think that power is some physical instrument kept in a bag in State House that if Weda is not holding on his back, he's not having power. Weda is in government and is in power. He can fire, he can sack, he can hire. He can cause things to happen in a government agency. My brother and sister, power is not a physical solid thing kept in a corner somewhere that you open and see. Power is the ability to make decisions. So we are not peripheral players. I'm the Secretary General of the National Alliance, a senior member of the ruling coalition. That aside, as you talk of the lists of people who are high in numbers in KRA, the people who have got high numbers in national institutions, you should also ask yourself who are the highest number in jails, who have the highest number in Koinange Street as prostitutes, as thieves, because we are also, as a country, there are people who are more than the others. So what we should be asking is how do we integrate into governance so that all of us are involved, but even at that time, some will be more than the others because they are more than the others. You do not expect El Molos to be more in government than the Kalenjins or than the Luos, because there are few. So you also, next time you talk about that, also go to committee and take your statistics. You'll also find that very community you're talking about outnumbering the others. When you finish that, also go to Koinange on Friday night. You'll find that community again outnumbering the others. That is why I constantly say, please. That's why I constantly say, let us work for purposes of uniting this country, and not whenever we spew up, we spew tribalism. About education, I tend to disagree a little. Nobody said that if you take education as a requirement to parliament, it should be the panacea to all that we have sought about leadership. That is supposed to be a bare minimum. One thing that I'm in total agreement is that izima degree ya kuchukua on rooftops of shops and shopping centers, people do 1.5 years. They have simply diluted education in this country, and so as the government must take a very resolute action to ensure that those degrees first are disowned, revoked, and so that people earn degrees. They earn the power to read and do all that appertain to the degrees that they have. After that, a degree as a minimum requirement is to ensure that someone can participate in meaningful debate and contribute to the welfare of his country in whatever role he's playing. The rest about values, about integrity, about other aspects of leadership. Now those are the things we leave to the people to check between Mike and Olga. They both have the capacity to understand and participate. But Mike is so corrupt that we cannot trust him. We go for Olga. So I support the requirement of education as a bare minimum to ascend to leadership. But we must first clean the house to ensure that hii degree ya kuokota yote kwanza itolewe. So that our people come with serious education backed, and then the people are given a chance to choose the best amongst those.
Can I just make one comment, just a factual comment, as we talked about facts. The last ethnic audit that was done by NCIC, which I spoke about, and I remember whether I even wrote an article to to attack me at that time when I was in the KCHR, and Governor Mutua, who was the spokesman at that time, asked for that I be relieved of my duties because I was spreading, you know, tribal animosity. NCIC investigated that case and said it's fact. You know, there was an ethnic audit that was done and said and demonstrated that certain communities were disproportionately represented in government, beyond those quotas that you talked about in KKK, KRA, Koinange and Kamiti, beyond those quotas. So you know, when if you are 22% or 19% of the country, then you cannot end up having 35% in one particular institution. That is called, that's asymmetrically also an imbalance. That shows that there is something systemically wrong with that kind of a process. So I think there are facts to defend these types of positions. These are just not political rhetoric. That's why nobody in making these assertions has ever been found guilty of hate speech, because what is factual is not hateful. What is non-factual is what is hateful. And then this, I personally come from a maternal family which is extremely highly educated. So if you want Harvard degrees who can become, who can lead central banks and everything else, we have them. The first person from our family got a degree, my maternal family, in 1946. So I think these things of telling people that they have higher competence than others, I think it's extremely in bad faith. Everybody lately has a degree in one, has these types of litany of educated people. You talk to the young Somalis these days, literally every young Somali is talking in an accent. He tells you he's in Braeburn, he's in Strathmore, you know, all these types of schools. So let's not go in that direction. I think it's not right.
All right.
And finally, the earlier Onyango realizes is peripheral, the more comfortable he'll have a night's sleep. You know, sometimes one of the things we beat ourselves is to believe that we have this assumed power that you do not have. Like, you see, for me, even without a position in the WIPA, I used to be in this little caucus of code where we will make decisions.
So what is power to you? Is it position?
Yes. It's not necessarily position, it's your ability to influence outcomes. The ability to influence outcomes, your ability to see, you know, to gravitate thorax. Do you want to tell me?
And are you saying
do you want
like
to tell me?
Not able to influence
disciplinary committees, someone who you, someone, again, this one, he's alpha and omega. Submitting party nomination lists, he's the alpha and omega. But where there's an HGR deal going down, where there's a sugar deal going down, where there's a deal on equipment in the hospital, I can tell you, Onyango comes to defend here from a position of theory.
All right, thank you very much, Hassan Omalte. I'll take your closing comments, Weda.
Yeah, although he called my institution Napier grass. He called fellow MPs stupid. I don't know what the senator smokes of late, but I can tell Kenyans that our problem with the sugar industry is the illegal importation. And each one of us, let us be out on the lookout. These are the sugars that come. If they come through the normal legal channels and they pay the taxes, we are cheaper than them and we will outrun them. But if you bring through Kismayu, through wherever, through Swam, through Serare, through all this, then what they are using to outcompete us are the taxes they are not paying. So nobody should be worried about the local sugar industry. As the chair of Sony Sugar, yes, are you assuring the farmer that he is not at risk even with this deal going on? I am assuring the Kenyans that and my farmers that you are not at risk if they import sugar to cover the shortfall, and if it is imported through the legal channels. Our worry, our problem is the illegal ones, the ones that are brought in here, they don't pay tax. So what is considered cheap is the tax difference. Otherwise, there is no cheap sugar anywhere in the world. It is the tax difference. We are safe, and I can assure you, we will look at it again in December and you will see it. Ogla, closing comments? Very brief. When I asked the governors about the health equipment, they said they did not even know what they were asked to sign. They were only given the pack page. They did not even see the whole document. And that is what is happening with sugar. Jubilee does its things in secrecy and demands that we all swallow it. I want to ask Kenyans and all farmers, not only Kenyans, most of this sugar, of this food that we are importing from outside countries, including rice, are things that have been in stores for the past 100 years. And we're having enough diseases in this country. Cancer is rising every day because people are not eating natural food. I want to tell farmers in Kenya, Jubilee has betrayed you
So farmers of tea, farmers of sugar, farmers of maize, you are being sold every day so that you become poor. Stand for your right, because only you can stand for yourself. You are the one who goes to the farm.
Thank you so much. One thing I would like to say is that our viewers should understand that the sugar issue is in good hands, and the opposition is abdicating its responsibility. A more physical presence of the opposition is that they control the two counties that are the entry and the exit of sugar to Uganda. That is Mombasa and Busia. So if they were responsible enough, they would know if sugar has entered towards Uganda and it has gone into Uganda and is coming back. So other than playing politics, they have abdicated their role, and they should know that measure is being put in place to ensure that there's no sugar being dumped into this country.
Thank you.
That's a very shallow jab.
Closing comments.
It's a very shallow jab. How does you want the opposition to have inspectors at KPA and on the roadside and the roadblocks? What's wrong with you? So that's said and done. I think the opposition is honest. The opposition are men and women whose character in this country goes beyond reproach. There are people who have said the same thing for the last many odd years. And whether we see something that is coming down that we think is not in public interest, we will say it. And let the government defend itself. Let there be facts. Let there be a discourse. This is a democratic country, and this discourse is extremely legitimate. And if you want to know what I smoke reality. My brother, I have not known how to hold. I have not known how to hold back anything that is real. You know, if I call a spoon, a spade a spade, and that's it, how it is. And for me, I can tell you for a fact, the opposition is the only single thing right now that stands between a totalitarian regime and the Kenyan people. Stands between truth and the falsity that you see.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Hassan Omar, Senator Mombasa County, and also Secretary General for Wiper Party. Ogla Karani, who's the Treasurer for ODM. Onyango Olotien, Secretary General. Ambrose Sweda, who's a lawyer, and also Chair and Board of Directors, South Nyanza Sugar Company Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the way it is. And do stand by. We have our lifestyle section coming up, and Sophia Wanuna will be hosting a young man who is definitely inspirational and going places, not just for himself but for this country. Do stand by. That's all coming up.